In our increasingly digital age, we can access almost any piece of information in mere seconds. If you wanted to get in touch with someone on the other side of the planet, you could do so over an instant messaging platform or video calling software. And if you needed to travel from one country to another, you could hop on a plane and arrive at your destination within hours. In other words, it's never been easier to connect with people and places all around the world. But despite these modern conveniences, there are still certain locations that very few people ever get to see, and even fewer would willingly visit. Some of these places are so remote that they're difficult to reach even by plane. Others are so dangerous that traveling there could mean risking your life. Still, some are simply so mind-bogglingly beautiful that you just have to see them to believe them. Today, we're going to explore one of the latter. But before we reveal where, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more videos about amazing and terrifying places you won't believe actually exist. Now, let's jump in. This is the Ocean Ranger, the largest oil rig ever built. At the time it was constructed, it was thought to be virtually indestructible. Its creators had designed it to withstand the harshest conditions the North Atlantic Ocean could throw at it, including 200 miles per hour winds and waves measuring 100 feet across. But nothing could have prepared the Ocean Ranger's crew for what happened on February 14, 1981. That day, the rig was transformed from a technological marvel to a floating prison. It became a scene straight out of a dystopian novel, but it's a story that many people have completely forgotten. To understand what happened, we first have to take a step back and learn about the history of oil exploration off Canada's east coast. Although the United States and Venezuela had begun exploring for oil in the region during the early 1900s, it wasn't until the 1970s that Canada got involved as well. As it turned out, there were vast deposits of oil beneath the seabed in an area known as the Grand Banks. To reach these deposits, the Canadian government allowed several oil companies to drill exploratory wells, and since the seabed was so far below sea level, it required special equipment to drill. Enter the self-propelled semi-submersible offshore drilling rigs. There were only a few of these rigs in the entire world. When the Ocean Ranger was built in 1976, the idea behind them was simple. They would float on the surface of the water until they reached their designated drilling location. Then they would lower long metal drills deep into the ocean floor. These drills would stay in place while the rig itself would bob gently up and down with the waves. While this type of technology made it possible to reach the oil deposits in the Grand Banks, it also came with inherent risks. After all, these rigs were completely exposed to the fury of the North Atlantic. And as anyone who's ever visited the coast of New England or Scotland can attest, those waters can get pretty rough. Still, the potential rewards outweighed the risks, and the Ocean Ranger was sent to the Grand Banks to begin drilling. Everything was going well until February 1981. That's when a massive storm rolled in, and with it, some truly gigantic waves. One of those waves hit a nearby oil rig called the Sedco 706 and knocked it over. Luckily, the crew managed to escape without injury, but the rig was badly damaged. This was a bad omen for the Ocean Ranger. The next day, the weather had calmed down significantly, so the crew decided to resume drilling. However, the captain noticed that the waves were still quite high. Just then, a wave measuring approximately 100 feet crashed against the Ocean Ranger, striking the port bow and pushing the rig over. Despite being designed to withstand waves twice as large, the Ocean Ranger began to tilt dangerously to one side. Soon, the crew realized that the wave had breached one of the rig's two control rooms. Worse yet, it had opened a hole in the wall, allowing seawater to flood into the ballast system. If you're not familiar with the term ballast, it basically refers to the amount of water that a ship pumps into tanks inside its hull. By adjusting how much water is in these tanks, ships can control their buoyancy and maintain a certain level in the water. In the case of the Ocean Ranger, the ballast system was crucial for keeping the rig stable. But now that it had been breached, the rig began to list even further. As the situation grew increasingly dire, the crew abandoned the Ocean Ranger. A helicopter arrived to rescue them, and they were winched to safety one by one. Meanwhile, the Ocean Ranger continued to take on water, and the list became even more pronounced. Within hours, the rig was completely submerged. An investigation later revealed that the wave had hit the rig at precisely the wrong moment, causing just enough damage to allow water to enter the starboard ballast pump room. Once inside, the water shorted out the motor and flooded the entire system. Since the pumps were unable to remove water from the ballast tanks, the rig slowly filled up and eventually sank. Despite being the largest and most advanced oil rig in the world, the Ocean Ranger had met its match. But why did it sink so quickly? You see, the Ocean Ranger had been designed to withstand just about every type of wave the North Atlantic could throw at it. That's why it was built with ballast tanks that could automatically fill up if the rig started to list too far in one direction. In theory, this should have kept the rig stable and upright. However, there was a flaw in the design. The crew realized this after the Ocean Ranger sank, but it was too late. On February 15, 1981, the Ocean Ranger was declared a total loss. The Canadian government launched an investigation to determine what had caused the accident. They discovered that the fatal blow had come from a rogue wave, which is defined as a wave that's significantly larger than all the others in its vicinity. While rogue waves are relatively rare, they're not unheard of. In fact, there have been several instances of cargo ships being capsized by them. But in the case of the Ocean Ranger, the wave was just big enough to cause catastrophic damage. Although the Ocean Ranger was only 2 years old when it sank, it's still considered to be one of the worst oil spills in Canadian history. This is mainly because of the amount of oil that was on board the rig. When it sank, approximately 11 million gallons of oil and 1.3 million cubic feet of natural gas were released into the environment. This caused major damage to the local ecosystem and had devastating effects on the fishing industry in the region. It took several months for the full extent of the damage to be assessed, but by the time it was all said and done, it was clear that the impact was immeasurable. Even today, scientists are still studying the long-term effects of the spill, but there's no doubt that it had a major impact on the environment. In the years since the Ocean Ranger sank, several measures have been taken to prevent another disaster like it. For example, all drilling rigs operating in the North Atlantic are now required to have a dynamic positioning system, which uses thrusters to keep the rig in a fixed position. Additionally, all rigs must now be equipped with a helideck, which is a platform that allows helicopters to land and take off safely. Finally, all crews working on offshore drilling rigs must now receive training in emergency procedures. These measures have helped to make the North Atlantic a much safer place for oil workers. But there's still no guarantee that another disaster won't strike. After all, the Ocean Ranger was designed to withstand the harshest conditions imaginable, and yet it was undone by a single rogue wave. What do you think? Would you dare work on an oil rig in the North Atlantic? Let me know in the comments below. And while you're at it, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more videos about incredible places. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.